Oh man, what Gary Gensler just said at the Senate about Robinhood and Citadel is disastrous for both of those companies. Let's take a look at what happened. So, Gary Gensler was testifying at the Senate Banking Committee, and he spoke and alluded to the fact that the dominance of the likes of Citadel in payment for order flow means that retail are not getting the best deal. He also mentioned that banning payment for order flow is on the table. It's one of the options he's exploring, and he's doing a deep investigation into payment for order flow and the efficiency and effectiveness of it. Now, we know that Citadel have about 47% market share in payment for order flow revenues, and Virtue Financials has 25 to 30%. So just within these two big institutions, you have 75 to 80% of payment for order flow revenue tied in. And this is anti-competitive, okay? Now, Gary Gensler, and I quote, says, "I'm pro-competition and I'm not sure the payment for order flow system really is the best competitive landscape." And by the way, if you don't understand how Robinhood makes money and what payment for order flow is, check out the video. I'll leave the link in the description or a card here if I remember. And payment for order flow is critical. It makes up about 75 to 80% of Robinhood's revenue. Now, the question is are retail investors getting the best pricing? This is the question. Or is Robinhood channeling the orders? So if we place a trade on Robinhood, is Robinhood channeling those orders to their favorites who give them the biggest rebate commission, right? So if I agree to buy, this is very simplistic, but I suggest you go watch the video for more detail. But if I want to buy a Tesla share for $1,000, okay, so I agree to, and I place an order on Robinhood to buy it for $1,000. If Citadel can go and find that cheaper on the market, they will split the difference. We don't know what percentage, it varies, with Robinhood. Okay, that's your payment for order flow. So if I'm Robinhood, will I not send that order to Citadel versus, let's say, Virtue or anybody else if I know that Citadel are going to give me a bigger percentage back, right? Building relationships with them, saying maybe, okay, we go 50-50 and building a deal at the expense of me getting a better deal. Okay, instead of them giving me a price at 950 or 960, 970, they're just increasing the commission they're taking. And that is anti-competitive, right? Because it means other payment for order flow companies are not getting the deal because it's going straight to Citadel. Robinhood is saying we're sending it all to Citadel, we're sending it all to Virtue Financial, right? And they just keep it between themselves. Now, Gary Gensler also says they get the data, they get the first look, they get to match off buyers and sellers out of that order flow. That may not be the most efficient markets for the 2020s. And he's absolutely right. And like I always say, if anything is free, including these commission-free trading apps, and I'm not generally against them, I think they're a good platform for people to start off with, and we'll come on to that in a second. But when something is free, you are giving up your data. And in this instance, you're giving up the fact that you're telling Robinhood what orders you're placing and at what price point. And they're using that data, selling it on to the market makers, to Citadel, to Virtue Financial, for them to place that, and they split the difference in the savings instead of you getting the best execution. And this is the question that Gary Gensler wants to explore. And he specifically says it's all on the table, and he's not ruled out a complete ban on payment for order flow. And by the way, this would be disastrous for Robinhood. I mean, we've looked at the Robinhood earnings before, and they have not managed to diversify away from payment for order flow. They're very clear that their revenue comes from payment for order flow. It's about 75 to 80% of their revenue. And if there was a complete ban on payment for order flow, this would be a disaster for Robinhood and Robinhood investors, right? Now, there are still questions about what the SEC exactly will do next. They're still investigating it. We know that they're looking to rethink the way rebates and the national best bid offer model works, which is the model of how the executions work. And ultimately, we know what the SEC goal is, right? They want to encourage competition, they want to lower costs and raise efficiency. That's what they say their goals are. That's what they want to do. They want to make it a free market. They want to keep it open, transparent for retail investors like you and I to be able to see everything clearly. Now, interestingly, Dan Gallagher, who's the head of legal at Robinhood, he's come out with a quote, which I want to read to you as well. So he's the chief legal officer, sorry. He says, The SEC is going to arrive at the conclusion that payment for order flow is undoubtedly an amazingly good thing for retail investors, and they're not going to ban it. So he's of the opinion that they're not going to ban it at all. Now, it's interesting. He was an SEC commissioner from 2011 to 2015, so he knows how these things work. So it gives you a little bit of confidence. But he also says the notion that customers are stupid, that they need protection, that they need the government and the nanny state to come out and save them from making bad decisions, I think they're insulted. And I think this is an interesting one because I disagree with Dan here. I think naturally he's going to defend Robinhood, and obviously this is a big deal for them. This is 80% of their revenue at risk here by what Gary Gensler and his team of commissioners decides to do with payment for order flow. And it's clear, we know, Robinhood, unlike Coinbase, are heavily reliant on their transaction fees, and they've not managed to diversify away from it. So it's quite a scary proposition for Vlad, the CEO, and Dan Gallagher, the chief legal officer. They can't mess this up. They need this to work. But the notion that we'd be insulted, I'm not insulted. I use commission-free trading platforms. I'm not insulted if SEC want to regulate it and give us better execution and change the dynamics of how that works. I mean, I understand the fact that they're trying to democratize trading. That's what they claim to do, right? Robinhood, oh, we've got so many retail investors involved by making it commission-free. That's not the point. The point is that you shouldn't keep a little monopoly between where you're sending that payment for order flow. Right? It needs to be a fair split of who you're sending it to people in a fair manner, and ensuring we get some of that benefit on the execution side as well. Instead of saying, oh, I was going to buy Tesla $1,000, let's not give him any savings, even though we found it cheap at $900, we'll just split the $100 spread between us two, right? Between Citadel and Robinhood. He'll be none the wiser. We just give him rubbish execution. Okay, and that's what we need to solve here. You can't just assume retail investors are so grateful to use a trading platform that we don't understand what good execution is, or we don't understand what the best pricing is. We want good pricing, and I think retail investors have become more and more savvy to this. That we want the data streams, we want the data sources, we want the news and the intelligence and the insights and the spreads and the transactions that institutions have. We want to be able to compete, and with the whole movement of decentralized finance and blockchain technology, we're starting to see that. We're already seeing, algorithmic trading bots on blockchains where, the late average person like you and I can now start using these algorithmic trading bots, which were previously only reserved for the top investment banks, right? So these things are starting to be democratized, and we're not going to settle for just saying, "Oh, we're so grateful to use Robinhood and not having to pay a fee," even though you're exploiting us on the other side and giving all of our orders to Citadel so you can split that profit. So it's definitely something which everybody will be looking at with a keen eye. We also know that the SEC mentioned yesterday at the committee that they're close to finalizing and publishing their report on the meme stock saga, which they call it, earlier in the year. Now they're saying their commissioners are just reviewing that and then they're going to come up with it. And Dan Gallagher, the chief legal officer, actually said if he was still at the SEC, he would be investigating the people and institutions that he claimed lied surrounding the GameStop short squeeze. So he's trying to deflect attention, say, look, leave us, Robinhood, alone. Go find out who was doing the lying and address that issue. And I agree, that's a point as well. If there was lies on that side, we need to find out what those were. But at the same time, this payment for order flow definitely needs somebody looking over it. And I think Gary Gensler is the perfect man for that, to keep an eye on it and keep these guys honest, right? Because Robinhood has had tremendous growth. They've got massive user bases of people who, it's their vast majority of the people signing up to Robinhood, it's their first time using a trading platform, and they won't be none the wiser. So who's going to make sure that Robinhood are staying honest, are giving the best executions in a world and, versus a customer base who are only starting to learn about trading and and the difference between good executions and bad executions, right? So I think that's exactly what regulation is for, and I think it's a good sign that we're seeing that. I mean, it may not be a popular opinion, but I think it's regulation like this which will help companies like Robinhood actually grow longer term if they get it right, okay? As long as it's not an outright ban, which I don't think we'll get an outright payment for order flow ban, but if we could streamline it and remove some of the anti-competitive practices, I think that would be a big step forward. So there you go, guys. My take on what's going on with the SEC and regulation around payment for order flow. A good update there from Gary Gensler at the Senate meeting yesterday. If there are any more updates on this, I'll be sure to update. If you enjoyed this type of video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.